Welcome, everyone, to Driving and Dragons. I'm Daniel. This is the final episode dealing with the specific alignments in the 9 alignment system as part of my ongoing series on alignment in TTRPGs. That's right, after 15 videos dating back almost a year, we are coming up on the end of the philosophical and mechanical breakdowns of the individual alignments traditionally featured in the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game. This time, we are covering the most vexing of the alignments, chaotic neutral. Of all the alignments, when a player comes to my table with those two dreaded letters, C, N, written on their character sheet, it raises the most suspicion. This is likely because given that alignment is possibly the most fundamentally misunderstood and misapplied mechanic in the entirety of the TTRPG hobby, that players who gravitate towards it are often looking for the optimal way to avoid its consequences. Before we jump into it, let's talk cars and money. On the 280ZX, we are replacing the brake rotors and pads. I was originally going to replace the lines and calipers too, but those all appear to be in pretty good shape, given the life this car has had in the infamous Rust Belt. Once I get to the rear brakes, you'll get to see a real time capsule, as the elephant ear style calipers on the rear wheels are a design that is both old and rare. To the best of my knowledge, the only road cars you found them on were Datsuns and Nissans from the late 70s and early 80s, and there's a reason that they aren't more common. They're a complete pain in the ass. It's like the fine folks at Nissan said, well, since we aren't going to be using drum brakes anymore, let's cater to the customers who are nostalgic for marathon swearing sessions in the middle of what should be a simple brake job with these things. For now, I'm pulling the front hubs apart and getting a good look at them to make sure that they're still in good order, then swapping out the rotors and pads. While I have them off the car, I'm going to send the wheels off to the body shop to get reconditioned, painted, and then fitted with a new set of tires. On the subject of the channel progress, I am slowly but surely getting closer and closer to getting the Dodge down here. That one will be a lot of fun to wrench on. Corvid Codex is also live, folks, available in both physical and ebook formats on Lulu. And I have to tell you, the paperback turned out gorgeous, and the artwork really looks sharp printed out on the pages. Links to both versions of the book and to my Patreon will be in the video description below. Other than that, you can support the work I do here, both in terms of producing content designed to make you think or at least laugh, and in terms of working on cars to benefit others in our community by signing up for channel membership or by hitting the Super Thanks button. Or you can help spread the message far and wide for free by hitting the like, share, hype, and subscribe buttons. With all that said, let's get into the wasp's nest that is chaotic neutral. One of the big things about this series that has largely gone by without being specifically mentioned is that if you have a firm grasp on the fundamentals of alignment and how it is properly implemented, there is no single alignment that is any better or worse for your players to choose. You can run evil parties just as easy as good parties, or lawful groups with the same carefree ease as chaotic ones, when everyone understands how it works and approaches the game with the maturity needed to function in a social gaming environment. Unfortunately, as I think I have established over the past 15 videos, the best argument against the very existence of alignment in TTRPGs is that only a very small percentage of players in that player base have either the ability or the care to actually get it right. There's an adage that says small minds discuss people, average minds discuss things, and great minds discuss ideas, and that's kind of how it goes with alignment. Novice players see it as mechanical, average players see it as descriptive, great players see it as conceptual. To the majority of the player base, it is at most a surface level concern. Which leads me to why it is that chaotic neutral is the reddest of flags and is the one alignment that I will outright disallow at my table until I have established a grasp of the maturity and outlook of the player in my game. Even the 3.5 Player's Handbook, which I feel outlines alignment better than any other TTRPG product to my knowledge, presents chaotic neutral in a way that promotes immature surface level thinking. A chaotic neutral character follows his whims. He is an individualist first and last. He avoids authority, resents restrictions, and challenges traditions. This sounds a whole lot like chaotic neutral means do whatever the hell you want. And maybe that is the issue in and of itself. Chaotic neutral is, at its core, a very immature alignment. So when an immature player picks it, you are compounding that immaturity. Looking back at our previous discussions, we understand that the root of the chaotic mindset is not about arbitrariness or randomness, but it's instead about a focus on the immediate to the exclusion of the aftermath. It is about focus on the part and ignorance of the whole. So when this concept is extracted to a surface level, rudimentary philosophy, it turns into I do what I want when I want. And this leads to the character who is essentially schizophrenic as the player just acts on a whim, leaving the character with no internal logic. And worse still is it is often a guise for players who think that because their alignment lacks morality and shuns ethics, that this somehow absolves them of the consequences for their actions, even when said consequences come from the other players via their characters. But what is chaotic neutral in its correct form? Simply put, it is an individual who makes their decisions based solely on the present and evident facts of an immediate situation. That's the most desirable outcome in the immediate situation. And what differentiates them from good characters is that they don't consider sacrifice for others without some kind of evident gain for themselves. What differentiates them from evil characters is that they won't deliberately harm others unless the benefit far outweighs the harm. And this is, in essence, what makes them difficult for a player who lacks a deep understanding of how alignment functions to play them well. The chaotic neutral character has to be approached from the angle of path of least resistance in the immediate sense. In terms of a character or a typical NPC, this is going to mean a very short-term outlook. In terms of a being of chaos, such as an outsider or some kind of primal force, it's going to mean immediate in a very literal sense. Decisions are made based entirely on the immediate situation at hand. And coincidentally, this is also an extremely effective way for a sane player, or GM, to act as an insane character. Chaos in that pure form just it is what it is with most personality disorders. Most personality disorders are a state of being id driven. So, you got your ego, superego, and your id. Your id is that raw, instinctive, emotional, reactive center of the brain that lives entirely in this second. Even a sane PC of a chaotic neutral alignment is going to live in their id, which is not an easy thing to do as a player acting on behalf of that character from a third-person, top-down perspective. It just isn't, because while you are supposed to be inhabiting the mind of your player when we play these games, or your character when you play these games, you are still an outside entity, and it is hard to exist entirely within the one perceptual moment of that character. And honestly, I put a lot of the blame for some of these problems on the use of the term chaotic. And now I know that chaotic, it had a different meaning in the original kind of proto-alignment system when we had 5 alignments and I think 7 alignments or 6 alignments. The other older systems that developed into the 9 alignment system later, chaos was basically everything that wasn't good or lawful. But it implies something more than what the alignment is. And that's what I think leads to some of the issue. particularly in its pure form, without some kind of moral compass to provide some guidance to that chaos. As a player, there becomes a serious disconnect there as well, because the pressure to make decisions based on metagame information is significant when your alignment gives you the impetus to behave in a way you see best in that moment, where as a player, you're going to look at it and be like, well, if I do it this way, though, it's going to have these repercussions in the future. And when do you get to the point where you're no longer thinking in that chaotic mindset by, oh, well, I'm going to protect these laws, or I'm going to start protecting these traditions and stuff because they make sense overall, and I just don't want to have I've decided that the cost is going to be too high later on. That's not a truly chaotic mindset. The unfortunate truth is that it often translates as what the players perceive as best for themselves, as opposed to what the character would perceive as is best for them. So you're thinking, well, I'm going to do what's best for me in this situation, but instead of me being your character, me is you as a player. And that's really, I think, where a lot of the disconnect comes with chaotic neutral. So it is, I believe, inherently a difficult or a more advanced alignment to play well and have functional characters, which is kind of counter to what a lot of the quote-unquote conventional wisdom would be, whereas the conventional wisdom that looks at alignment as only a surface philosophy, as only some kind of top-level game mechanic, it's just like, oh, well, you just get to do whatever you want. But how many times have you had a chaotic neutral character do whatever they want, and then that player's all butthurt when the other players do something to him? Why are they doing that to me? It's like, well, because you did this. Well, I'm chaotic neutral and they're not. It doesn't matter. You're not free from the consequences. You don't get to be a jackass and not have it blow up in your face. That's not what it means. They almost lean on that alignment as protection from consequences, and it only even makes the tiniest bit of sense because they can't get past that surface level, dig deep, and think of this as what it should be. My character's brain functions in the moment. That's how it sees the world. It sees what's in front of me right now this way. And it doesn't really consider what came before or what could come after. So, that's what I've got to say on chaotic neutral. What about you? Do you see chaotic neutral as more of a problem than other alignments? Do you see it as the terrible twos, undeveloped morality and ethics? And that's kind of how I see it, is characters who are stuck in their terrible twos. Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the next one.